Welcome back to my darkroom. Today we're going to be doing something a little bit different than I normally do in the darkroom. Today what we're going to be doing is a self-portrait or environmental self-portrait in the darkroom. I don't really have any shots of me in here, and I like to have stuff for promotional or website, about me pages and things like that. And I have a lot of stuff down in the studio, and you've seen me take some of those headshots and whatnot, but I don't really have a good environmental one for the darkroom. So that's what we're going to be doing today. I have a crown graphic right here set up with a 90mm lens so I can get a good view of the room. I am not going to be a major portion of the shot, but I will be in it. We're going to be doing black and white, so I have some FOMA 100 loaded up, ready to go. But we're going to be doing a test shot on some black and white Instax wide film, so I've got the lomographic back on there right now. A little bit about the lighting. Normally for a video, I would have a LED panel sitting right here with a softbox. Of course, that's going to be in the way, so we can't shoot that. And they're not bright enough. It would not light up where I'd be standing by the enlarger. So I'm not going to use an LED panel, and the ceiling lights are not going to be bright enough either. So what I'm going to be using is a Pseudophoto P80 LED video light, but rather than the panel style like what I've used before, this is a monolight style, and it takes on the Bowen S mount for modifiers. It's a great light. It's very, very bright compared to a panel, much brighter. Right now it has a 3-foot Impact brand or B&H House brand Octobox with a white interior, an interior and exterior baffle. And with all that, I am still at about f8, which is wide open on the lens, at a 1/15 of a second, which is fairly fast for 2 meters away and an LED light. So that's going to be the main key light. Aside from that, I have the ceiling lights on as a little bit of an accent, and then I've got 2 small video LED lights back there to just kind of separate my head and the enlarger from the black painted wall. All right, we are going to go ahead and take a test shot, see how this works out. Let me grab my apron because I want to wear that. All right, we've got our shutter speed set, our aperture f8, got everything to go. All right, I think we're ready, so let's go take our test shot. And I've got one of these long pneumatic bulbs, so that's what I'm going to be firing it with. So let's just see how this exposure works out. There we go. Okay, we'll give that a second to develop, and if it's good, we'll take out the lomographic, refocus, make sure everything's good for a standard film holder, and then make our exposure. Now, of course, this is not going to be as wide a field of view as the final photograph. That's okay. All right, I like that. I think that actually turned out pretty good. So we're going to adjust our focus, take out the lomographic, and take the actual shot. And this itself might end up on Instagram this week, because it's a pretty good shot. All right, let's make some changes here. All right, let's meter for our new ISO. So this has me at 5.6 and a half at half a second, or f8 and a half at 1 second. We'll do 1 second, and we'll do f8. That'll give us just a little bit more shadow speed or shadow detail. If we're a little overexposed, I'm not too concerned about it. Let's make sure. that close right there. All right. That was weird. Oh well. Let's take the camera and the light down to the studio and maybe take a still life with a different modifier and see how it works out there. Then we'll develop both shots, see what we end up with. I've set up a little bit of a still life right here. This is just a bunch of my filter rings, lens hoods, filters, and so forth. And I just want to take a picture of it as though it's on a shop table with kind of a fluorescent shop light over it. Right now the light is just straight up above, looking straight down, and it doesn't really do a whole lot. So I'm going to change that. Right now I'm about 1 second at f/22 because I've rated this at ISO 64. So we're going to lose some light. We're going to have to do a little bit longer exposure, but we're going to modify that light. So the Bowens mount on there fortunately gives us a means to do that. So I'm going to add a strip box. It's a 1 by 3 foot strip box with a grid, and we're going to see if we can get that long, thin, kind of diffused light that a fluorescent shop light would have. So let me add that. So this is giving it kind of a bright center of the image, fading out front and back like a shop table would have, which is kind of the look I'm going for. Okay, well, we only lost a stop. It says f/16 in 1 second. That's going to be f/22 at 2 seconds. So let's set this to bulb, and we'll give it 2, maybe 3. Foam doesn't have great reciprocity, so we might give it 3 seconds just to, you know, make sure we have enough shadow detail. But this should give me kind of that workshop light that I want, like I've just got laid out to kind of go through and fix stuff, which is what I have it there for. But I want the look to be different. So I have it set to daylight, so that should keep the ISO the same, because black and white films, if you shoot at tungsten, you tend to have to rate it a little lower. I have maybe 1/3 of a stop of extension going on. I'm using a 150 lens, but I'm not super close. So that 3 seconds I think would be perfect for what we're doing. And when you focus like this along a table and you want to get everything in focus, of course, a view camera like this is going to give you some movements. In this case, I've got everything tilted kind of forward. That starts to get this in focus, but it's not the greatest camera in that regard. So I'm going to have to use just some depth of field. That's why I'm using f/22. So you kind of focus not at the front, not at the back, kind of 1/3 of the way from the front. And then when you stop down, that gives you your full focus area. So I checked everything with a loop and it looks like everything's good. So now we're going to go ahead and shoot it, and then we'll develop it. See how it turned out. And there we go this week. Thanks for watching. A hot light like this can be really useful. I know they're made mostly for video, but for photos, sometimes this is kind of stuff that works really well. Strobes are great, flashes are great, but they're not always easy to modify, and they can get pretty expensive. So something like this is very affordable. It gives you pretty versatile stuff for both photo and video, as long as you can deal with some slightly longer shutter speeds. But they give you all kinds of different fill light. You can avoid gels, things like that if you need to, because you can change the color of these. And then a version like this where you have a Bowens S mount just lets you add so many different modifiers and get so many different effects that you might not get from the light panel. Panels have their place, but this starts to get there. I've used this now for the last, I don't know, 3 or 4 videos I've done down in the studio. So the DSLR scanning stuff was shot with this light, and it's really bright. It's easy to use and control. So if you're thinking about getting a hot light, something like this, the Pseudophoto P80 can be very useful. There are a bunch of other brands out there, but this one's affordable, well-built metal. So get out there and make some photographs, make some self-portraits, make some environmental portraits, do some still lives. Just shoot, man. Just shoot. We'll see you next time.